Hello, everybody. Welcome. Hello. We're going to wait a minute here for everybody to join. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning or afternoon or evening, wherever it is you are joining from. And so one of the things we like to do as we begin is to just invite you on the chat to type in where you're joining us from. So please just go ahead and type into the chat where you are joining us from. It's always nice to see our global participants. We have Montreal, New York, welcome. San Jose, California, welcome, welcome. Hong Kong, St. Petersburg, Florida, Johannesburg, South Africa, hello. Santa Cruz, Santiago, Chile, welcome. New Hampshire, Philadelphia, Bogota, British Columbia, France, hello. Göttingen, Germany, hello. Akumal, Mexico, hello, hello. So if you could just type in where you're joining us from. Barcelona, hello. A few people from Barcelona, welcome. Hamburg, Germany. If you could type in where you're joining us from, it's always nice to see who the community is here. So Puerto Varas, Chile, welcome. Denver, hello. Wonderful. So we're just getting started, and if you want to type in where you're joining us from, always really nice to see, but welcome everybody, welcome. I'm Rich Fernandez, I'm joined by Cecily Mack, and we are thrilled to be here to celebrate this launch event for SIY Global. And our intention today is really just to share about the new organization, a little bit of our origin story, a little bit about our vision going forward in the future. And so I'm really happy you could join us. This will be recorded and available later as well. If you've registered for this, you can watch it on playback as well. But again, welcome. And I love also the fact that we have our global community here. I think we have multiple continents and countries represented. So it's wonderful. And if you're just joining, type in please where you're joining us from. It's always so great to see. One of the things we always like to do, both in the Search Inside Yourself Leadership Institute and in this new organization, SIY Global, is to offer micro practices around awareness and around mindfulness and different qualities that exist within us. And so we have a micro practice that we like to call a 3-breath practice. And I'll just explain it briefly and perhaps invite us to try it together. So it really is occurring in the space of 3 breaths. So I'll explain it and then maybe we can do it together if you'd like. So on the first breath, I'll invite you to collect your attention and just center it on the experience of your breath as it comes in and out of the body. On the second breath, I'll ask you to take a nice long inhalation. And as you exhale, relax the body, one small measure, whatever that means for you. And then on the third breath, I'll ask you to just reflect on the question, what's alive for you right now? So if you would like to, please join me in the practice. And if you're welcome to close your eyes or just perhaps lower them and soften the visual field as we try this micro practice around 3 breaths. So first breath, inhaling and collecting your attention, centering it on the breath, the experience of the air coming in, and then as you exhale out of your body. Second breath, breathing in, nice long inhale, and then as you exhale, relaxing the body, one small measure, whatever that means for you. And then finally on the third inhalation, taking a nice long deep breath and reflecting on the question, what's alive for you right now in this moment? As you exhale. And just notice what arises. Okay, my friends. Well, thank you for that micro practice. It's a way, as we like to say, to arrive with our minds and our hearts and our bodies all together in this same moment as we're here from all over the world, you can see in chat. So again, we're really excited. This is our launch event, and the way we're envisioning this is Cecily and I are just going to have a little bit of a conversation. We're going to take turns asking each other questions about the new organization and where we're going. Before I do that, let me introduce Cecily. So if you don't know Cecily, Cecily, hello, welcome, my friend.
Hi, hello. Good to see you. Thank you for having me. What an awesome day to be honoring. Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to have you. And Cecily, for those who are not familiar, is the chair of our board. She was the chair of the board of directors of Search Inside Yourself Leadership Institute when we were a nonprofit. And now that we've created SIY Global, she's transitioned over to leadership in the chair role there. And then I'm the CEO, if you don't know me, of Search Inside Yourself Global. So
Yeah.
Cecily, if I'm just going to give you a quick introduction and then we can
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of get into our conversation. So Cecily is the Chief Operating Officer of Block Daemon, which is a blockchain infrastructure company. And previous to your current role as COO, you were a partner at Consensus, which was an Ethereum blockchain product development company. Before that,
hmm
having been at Flipboard as both chief counsel and then also the chief revenue officer. And then you also spent time at Rhapsody and Napster, the music
Yep.
company. And also an investor, an advisor, a guide to many startups. So we're just thrilled to have you. Cecily and I have worked together. Cecily being on the board of SILI, Search Inside Yourself Leadership Institute, for the past 2 years, and now our chair of the board of SIY Global. So it's so
Mm,
great to have you, Cecily. And I thought
yes.
we could begin with a conversation, and I'd like to ask you a few questions first, and then we could switch roles. But
Yep.
Cecily, what was it that interested you in this, in Search Inside Yourself? Which, if you're not
Mhm.
familiar with us, by the way, we originated at Google as a curriculum for mindfulness and emotional intelligence. We became an independent educational institute 10 years ago. And then just this year, we launched a for-profit public benefit corporation that works together with a nonprofit, to deliver the skills and training around mindfulness and emotional intelligence.
Mhm.
Cecily, what was it? And I remember the conversation early on, but if you could share with everyone, what
Yeah.
was it about Search Inside Yourself that was interesting for you and that you wanted to support?
Yeah. No, thank you. And thanks again for including me and welcome everybody online. I love seeing this smattering of folks around the planet with a shared interest in this work. So cool. I always get chills when I see how much of a global presence we have. Um, I think it boils down to this opportunity to have some type of a transformative impact on a personal level, but also within a work environment. So I had always felt throughout my life I had these kind of two channels of existence. There was my personal life where I had a practice and I had done a lot of my own work and kind of developing my own presence and my own self-awareness and my own mindfulness in my general state of being. But it felt very separate and apart from my work roles as a lawyer, as an executive or investor advisor, whatever it might be. And when I first started learning about Silly, I realized that this was an opportunity for these two worlds to come together and for an organization with the impact that and the reach that Silly already had to offer up some of these transformative practices to people in a work environment where we all spend a lot of our time, whether that's in government or tech or education or whatever it might be. And it was truly one of those, all complete yes moments. Rich, you'll recall the lunch that we had a few years ago, and you're telling me a little bit more about the work and the team and the opportunity to join the board. And there were just no red flags. It felt like an enormous honor and privilege to be able to get on board and continue to thread these two worlds that had felt so separate together. And there's obviously a need, there's obviously an appetite in the way that the organization was committed to evolving to meet that need with such diversity and heart and commitment was one of the most kind of just personally beautiful things I had encountered. And I wanted to jump in and see what I could do to help out.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, I remember the lunch well, and it really was this conversation about the fact that these skills that we're offering to train on, mindfulness, emotional intelligence, is something that seems
Yeah,
to be in demand around the world, needed
yeah,
in the world.
yeah.
And I think for those of you that aren't familiar with us, and many of you on this call are as well, many of you are our teachers and community members, but we operate in over 60 countries with a provider network of teachers, expert teachers, deep embodied
hmm
teachers. We have, I think, over 600 of them. So I think that,
Yeah.
Cecily, I remember that was exciting, the idea that we could do this globally together
Yeah.
with this
Yeah.
incredible teachers and participants.
For sure. For
I
sure.
think that goes to the next question. I know the answer because again,
Mm.
we talked about it, but I'd love for you to share, because when we had that conversation, when you took the role as chair of the board of SILY, it was really SILY as a nonprofit, and it will continue to exist as a nonprofit, by the way. It will continue to focus on delivering service to frontline providers in education, healthcare, other nonprofits and NGOs. But part of the evolution of Search Inside Yourself was that we could create a for-profit public benefit corporation. And this is actually
Mm-hmm.
thinking that you brought into the conversation. So I'm curious, what were you seeing, and how did you understand, how do you understand this idea that we could create and we should create this for-profit public benefit corporation that today now, as of April 6th, is SIY Global?
Mm.
So what was
Yeah.
there, Cecily?
Well, I think, we used to reflect a lot on this balance, Rich, between kind of adhering to and following the original charter of exclusively in-person, exclusively 501c3 backed efforts. And over time, as awareness of the offerings continued to grow and credibility began to scale, and I think on a global level, there's just been a gradual increase in appreciation and understanding around an appetite for a lot of the offerings that SILY has been developing now for many years. It felt time to do what we could to embolden our ability to seed and nurture this community and also enable scaling. So, one of the catalysts for this moment was actually what we endured together in Q1, Q2 of 2020, because there were some very well planned and scheduled, and I think largely sold out programming offerings around the world that were all of a sudden halted because of our shelter in place and just our collective concern about all of the unknowns around the pandemic. And the organization was in this interesting position of, well, what do we do? Do we actually literally stop everything because we can't do these in-person events? And there were a couple of shifts that stemmed from that. We started to do some of the offerings digitally. We saw an increase in diversity and access to some of those programs. We recognized that the power of digital tooling and communication could actually help us further our mission with even more reach and impact in this gesture of service than we had envisioned. And in kind of tracking this and thinking this through, it made sense to consider what we might do to actually prioritize build out of community and use of tools, digital and beyond, to further the mission and vision of SILY in the first place. So I think it's really been just a very organic unfolding from there. And we've had a lot of positive affirmation given a lot of the ease with which some of these steps have fallen into place. And it's just felt very right, very well timed. And you've led us through this in this incredible way that has felt very, very natural for the stage of the organization and the appetite that the world seems to have for the offerings from both SILY and then also SIY Global.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think that's a beautiful way to capture what this has been
Yeah.
all about, right? Why now?
Yeah.
Why this? Why now? Or why do we need a
Sure.
separate organization as I
Mm-hmm.
to go in parallel with SILY.org, which will continue, as I said. So, yeah, thank you
Yeah.
for that. All right, well, let
Yeah.
me kind of flip the roles here.
Yeah.
You have questions for me, other points of conversation we could engage with, maybe to also share with the audience?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, one really wonderful place to start, and you have such a unique perspective on this, is a little bit of a historical kind of refresh on how SILY came to be in the first place and how we got to where we are today. You've been the leader of this organization. Put us in our spot in history. How did this all come to be, and where are we going?
Oh, great question. Thank you. Yeah, so let me take everyone back, right? The origins of this organization are at Google, where Meng and a number of world experts put together a program called Search, like Google Search, inside yourself. When it was clear that we needed more human-centric skills, like working with other
Mhm.
humans, to be able to work with other humans, to thrive with other humans, to stay connected to other humans is a skill. And I think it was underappreciated as such because as a skill, it's trainable. And so back in the days of Google, I'm talking about '07, and I had a role at Google. I was director of executive education, which was senior leader development at Google. But Meng had really, and the team had really been already underway developing this emotional intelligence and mindfulness curriculum that was rooted in the science, brain science, specific
Mhm.
neuroscience, behavioral research. And it got a lot of traction within Google. I was one of the earliest teachers there. And
Mhm.
we were seeing it go viral within Google to the extent that then it became really a lot of interest came from outside the organization. So right around 2011, 2012, we got permission to spin off this search inside yourself curriculum as its standalone nonprofit educational institute. And from 2012 through even today, it's still operating. We have been delivering this training as a nonprofit educational institute, and that has been wonderful. And at the same time, what we've recognized is that we've worked across so many different sectors. In that time, we've trained over 600 certified teachers that work in so many different sectors in society, the business sector, but also education, healthcare, government, you name it. And a lot of those folks are on this call now. You'll see in the chat. What we realized was that the focus of the nonprofit on areas that nonprofits traditionally work with, such as government, such as other nonprofits, first responders in healthcare, for example, would be well served to continue that mission. And then the part of the organization that works with businesses in the B2B space, in the corporate spaces, we had an opportunity to really ramp that up, to really optimize that, to take on significant investment capital, for example, to build an infrastructure that's really supportive for the business customers. So we decided to separate these two entities. They're sister entities because they both teach SIY. They both offer similar training, but I think where SIY Global is going next, and I'm starting to preview a little bit here, so not just looking back, but looking forward, SIY Global is going to become, and we're starting to really build a very robust platform for the development of social and emotional intelligence skills, not just via training, but other formats as well, including digital formats. So being able to access these tools and trainings and practices through on-demand content, or also not just through the workshopping training experience, but also through coaching, for example, one-on-one coaching, small group coaching, and then also through small group learnings, what we call learning pods. Also supporting it with psychometric assessments so that you can get some insights on the state of emotional intelligence for yourself, for your team, or your organization. And finally,
Mm.
robust dashboards. So basically, the full portfolio of things that, for example, many organizations would seek to use to develop the skills of social and emotional intelligence, and to develop them not just for the individual, but also at the team level, and then finally at the systems level, or as at the level of the entire organizational culture. Because ultimately, that's our vision and mission, which is that we want to see awareness practices and emotional intelligence practices, which include mindfulness and empathy and compassion. We want to see them integrated into the cultures of an organization in a meaningful way.
So, I mean, having spent many years within a lot of, just a broad spectrum of companies, public, private, startups, little baby ones, big ones, and teams that are both very healthy and also struggling. I always really am moved by the transformative impact of this kind of work, and I love it that we're thinking in this systems way. I think it's really bringing a vision to life, and you capture it beautifully. A follow-up question. So the Search Inside Yourself Leadership Institute, the home base, the nest of so much of this work. What is the future of SILY, the nonprofit?
Yeah, well, it's a very bright future because it will continue as a .org. So it will continue to be silly.org, SIYLI.org, and it will really
Mm-hmm.
focus on first responders, people who are really working on the front lines of education, of government, of other nonprofits. And so it will do what traditional nonprofits do, which is, be a charitable organization serving
Mm-hmm.
the public benefit, especially for those who are also serving the public benefit. And then SIY Global will focus more on the B2B clients. It's just so, talk about real time call outs. I just want to, for example, here say that one of the projects that we've done together is to work, which is SILY and then SIY Global has been doing together, is to work with a very large organization in Ukraine. And I see we have one of the chief wellness officer, Natalia, from there, who just logged on. And hello, Natalia. Hello to you in Ukraine and to all your colleagues there. And we literally were on a call this morning with 120 employees. This is the largest food distribution company in Ukraine, agricultural food products, poultry and the like. And they are actively working as essential workers to distribute food currently in the Ukraine. And they contacted us, Natalia and team contacted us to ask us to offer science-based resilience training for their employees, and then also a video series for the general public. And so we're literally in the middle of doing that. And this is really through Search Inside Yourself Leadership Institute.org, but also in partnership with us over here, from SIY Global. And you're most welcome, Natalia. We're happy to be able to do that, as a service and in solidarity and support for you all in Ukraine. But I think, Cecily, to your question, that is an example of the type of work that SILY could do, but we also could do because they are an organization and because they are, a large organization in that country. SIY Global is well positioned to reach at scale a lot of their employees. So I think really to just finish out that question, the .org will do .org things, and the .com, SIY Global, will focus on .com things, which is really about building infrastructure and scaling these offerings.
I love it. I just have to acknowledge how seemingly quickly everybody moved to make this possible. It's not easy to mobilize as quickly as both of these organizations did, and to assemble the offerings and the teachers that I saw the lineup for the presence in Ukraine. It seemed like you guys pulled that off overnight, and I can't even imagine the logistics involved in both sides and the very complicated schedules of the people who are contributing to that. It's a testament to how much love and appreciation there is for the work because people prioritize it.
Thank
Yeah,
you much.
awesome.
You often remind me that we need to write things up as case studies. So I think
Yeah.
forthcoming will be a little, a blog or some sort of article about our partnership there, Natalia, with MHP in Ukraine and some of the world experts that showed up. I mean, so we've had the series that's included people like Daniel Goleman and Meng and Sharon Salzberg and Jack Cornfield and Amishi Jha and Tara Brock. And when I called them up, they all said, oh, yes, let me help. How can I help? And it's just a great partnership. So for those on the call, just look for eventually, as we continue this journey with our partners there in the Ukraine, look for maybe a little a write-up about it so you can learn more. But thank you. Yeah,
it's so cool. Yeah, I mean, it's really also a lot of these practices at work, right? Because if you're really clear and you're self-aware about what the most important things are, and you can prioritize the hours of your day, week, month in your work environment, which is applied so beautifully here for both of these organizations, really remarkable things can happen really quickly. And it's sort of like a backing, like a testament to some of this as well. So I just love seeing it. I look forward to reading what you all collect and are willing to share with the rest of the world who is not in the inner circle of making this happen. It's really, really great. One question, I know some folks probably will have, Rich, we went through a whole round of discussions and explorations with lawyers and advisors and whatnot, and deciding what flavor of organization we would consider in establishing SIY Global. And the Public Benefit Corporation was ultimately selected after, quite a bit of analysis and review. There was no lack of diligence on this, and you could probably spend a couple days talking us through all the advantages and disadvantages of all of the options we considered. But give us the highlights. Why did we choose a public benefit corporation? What does the community benefit from knowing about that selection given our alternatives?
Yes, so just a bit of context then for the listeners. As you know, when you start a company, you can structure the corporate structure in many different ways. And one of the ways that has increasingly been becoming known and prominent is what's called a benefit corporation. And so what that means is that you as a company, you are incorporated as a public benefit corporation, PBC. So it's kind of like instead of Inc. or LLC, it's PBC, Public Benefit Corporation. It means that you incorporate and make as part of your charter as an organization, your organizing principles, you make a commitment to measurable impact on the planet, positive environmental impact, a positive impact on the communities that you do business, fair, equitable practices for employees, transparent and fair and just governance practices. So you actually sign on to deliver that set of social impact outcomes in each of those categories. And it's not just a verbal commitment, because you actually will get audited by an outside body that certifies you as a benefit corporation. The best example or analogy is in the architecture or in the real estate space. When you build a building to high environmental standards, the gold standard is called LEED certification, LEED. It means that you've created a largely carbon neutral and renewably sourced energy building structure. And then you get this certification as LEED certification. And so what happens then is that on the corporate structure side, as a public benefit corporation, when we can measurably show that we have impacted the environment positively, the communities, and all those different things that I mentioned, then we get a B Corp certification. And it's a way to formally commit the organization to social impact goals. We're not a .org, so we're not a charity doing charitable work. We're a for-profit, but we're showing a measurable, like a concrete, measurable commitment to all those social impact areas. So we've chosen to do that. It doesn't, and just to quickly answer a question that came through here, how does this then affect our teaching network and who we provide, what we provide? It doesn't. Actually, our teachers will continue to do as they've always done, which is provide wonderful offerings and trainings and practices out to the world. And we will continue to work very closely with them as the key provider network for all of that.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for sharing the highlights. I know it's been quite a journey getting to that point. It seems like a very good fit. I have one last question before we're going to have, I think, 10 minutes or so for Q&A. So,
Sure.
So those who are online and have questions, feel free to pop them into the chat, and we can moderate as we go. Or I'm not sure actually if we'll do live moderation, but we'll get to that in just a minute. Before we transition to that segment, Rich, every time I talk to you, which is our kind of regular recurring one-on-one, I get to hear a bit about pipeline, like what's coming, what's imminent. And I know you just shared generously a bit about the work that's happening in partnership in Ukraine, but what else can you give us highlights on what's to come, either near or longer term future for SIY Global? Give us a taste.
Okay, I'll give a quick taste, and then I'd love for any questions and please continue to enter them to chat if you have questions. So what's, we're going to very extensively expand our programming. So include other topics beyond our foundational offerings around mindfulness-based emotional intelligence. We're now offering, of course, resilience programming, teaming programming. We're going to look to leadership programming. We're going to look to coaching one-on-one and in teams. And all of that will help extend and deepen some of the practices that we're known for, which is mindfulness-based social and emotional intelligence practices for individuals, teams, and organizations. for those of you, and I'm going to answer a question that's coming through the chat, for those of you that are teachers of this, that provide that in our global community of over 600 teachers, there's going to be more opportunities to do that. So we're going to partner with you so that you can continue to deliver what you deliver, plus extend it to some of these new offerings as well. So stay tuned for that. And for people who aren't teachers, that means that if you're a consumer of this type of thing, there'll be more offerings, more products available to you and through our certified teacher community. Coaching, I mean coaching that's focused on mindfulness and emotional intelligence coaching as a build on to our core programs. So it'll help extend the skills they learn in core programs. But you can also have standalone coaching to develop your social and emotional intelligence skills as an individual or as a leader or as both. Those are just some of the things that are coming.
Excellent. Let's see, here's a question from San Jose. Does or will SIY Global work to teach about anti-racism and other social justice efforts?
Currently, we don't, but I anticipate we will. That is one of the ways we need to extend our offerings. You really can't talk about social and emotional intelligence if you're not really thinking about social justice, you know, and equity and inclusion and belonging and all of those things. And so I'm imagining, and by the way, I'm saying this sort of like in the future tense because this is our second week of business as a new organization.
Yeah.
So it's early days. But I see that question there from Ariana, you know, and this is something that we can't not do if we're offering social and emotional intelligence. So I'm anticipating that, yes, we will be looking much more deeply at that and thinking about what we can offer by way of that. Yeah. What are some of the questions? Lots of questions seem to be.
Let's see. I'm happy to read out loud if that helps for those who are watching the chat. One of the biggest hurdles in mindfulness becoming mainstream is that it's still considered fuzzy. It's more concrete and scientific understanding still missing. Any specific actions planned around this from SIY Global?
Yeah, well, we always take a science-based approach to this. So we always anchor what we teach in neuroscience, behavioral research, and social psychology. That's been true from the beginning, right? We could never have taught mindfulness and emotional intelligence practices at a place like Google, where people are deeply analytical, inherently skeptical, and need to be shown sort of like the empirical value of these things. So the way we're able to do it at Google, the way we will continue to do it going forward is anchoring it on neuroscience and behavioral research. And that will always be a part of our presentation. It's not the only thing we do, but it's always going to be woven in there. So I think that's a very important question, Sapan. Thank you for that. Yes.
There's another question that's come up here in the chat. Can SIY certified teachers still be an employee somewhere?
Yes. Yes, of course. We have numerous people, and it's a case-by-case basis. Like it depends on what your employer has to say about that, because our core curriculum is 2 days long, is 16 hours long. And so if you're able to teach that, wonderful, you know, and your current role allows for that, wonderful. And we also find who often have that working experience or working background is really very helpful. And I appreciate this question comes, you know, from you, Yeshi, in Bhutan, right? And I know you've been a longstanding teacher and community members of ours, you know. And in Bhutan, by the way, for those that aren't familiar, we've trained 10,000 school teachers in that country, and are on the path now. I think we've probably reached at least 10,000 government employees, and that's accomplished because we trained 150 certified teachers in Bhutan. Yeshi is one of them who just sent that question in. And there's 150 Bhutanese teachers in government and in the school systems teaching SIY. So that's an example, again, of how we're trying to go to scale. Yeah, thank you for that question. And I love what we're seeing here, you know. Is there a target date? Here's another interesting question, Cecily. Is there a target date for the rollout of the new digital platform you mentioned? No, not yet. We're in the process of building the team that will build the platform. So I think the best thing I could say is that it's like a midterm objective of ours. And by midterm, I don't mean short or immediate term. I mean a couple of quarters out at least. But one of the things we know and Cecily, you're familiar with this from the tech world, is we're going to take an agile approach, which means we're going to put stuff out there and test it. And it may or may not work, it might break, but we'll learn and we'll iterate and we'll put the next thing out there. So we're going to take like this very lean, iterative approach to building that technology platform. And when I say
And
technology platform, I should just also specify, I don't mean that we're becoming an app company. I don't mean that you're just going to like be able to hit play and you can get all your content on demand, you know, in a library that exists. We're always going to value live delivery. That is our strength. This community of 600 certified teachers around the world, being able to show up and facilitate, whether it now be in person, because that's coming back, or virtually in a format like this, is always, always, always going to be central to what we do. And the digital platform will only support and supplement it.
I'm so glad you said that, because I think that that's a fear or concern that so many of us have, that we're losing the in-person and the human element of really profound work, offerings, and teachings around the world in lieu of tech. And we do really see tech as a tool here. It's to actually help scale impact and reach and the positive influence of this, not to be in lieu of. And that's something that we've talked so much about at the board level as well. So thank you for sharing that. And we see yay for live format. Question, are there any job openings at SIY Global, freelance or employed? Love it.
There, we're writing some job descriptions now. In week 2, we are writing some job descriptions. Let me put it that way. So those will be posted on our social media sites, on our website. So look out for those. Those are forthcoming. We are building the team now. We're going to stay lean. You know, I mean, we're a startup in many ways, right? What I call a late stage startup, because we've got 10 years of proof of concept. I mean, honestly, everyone, you know, we've reached over 200, I think 25,000 people at this stage around the world. You know, we've collected data on pre-post experiences in our programming, and we know it's super strong. I think the latest data I saw said that there's a 97% net promoter score across over 30,000 participants in the program.
Incredible.
That's pretty extraordinary, I think, right? And net promoter score, if you're not familiar, it's a very, very common metric, especially in internet companies. And it's a simple one question metric. Would you recommend this experience? Yes or no? And if the answer is yes, then you get a positive net promoter score. So ours is 97%, which is kind of extraordinary.
Yeah. So, okay, the question about whether or not the open positions will be shared is responded to here, is on the website. And then we have 2 other questions and only just a few minutes to close. So Rich, I'm going to let you decide how you want to use our remaining minutes.
Okay, I'm just going to speak to, I think, this question from Rajat, which is really useful. Traditionally, we've had a long format program. That is our foundational program. That will not change. There's value in the depth of programming. We will also think about other formats, which are shorter formats. We've already been experimenting with that. We have shorter programs that have similar, not quite as strong, promoter scores and positive outcome scores. So we want to offer the full menu, whether it's a little taster, an appetizer, or the full meal, which we always recommend. So all of that will be available by way of answering your question. So I know we're kind of coming on time, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. We tried to keep this to 45 minutes. Oh, this is a great question that came in kind of through private chat, but like, what makes you most excited, Cecily, about our new vision?
Oh, I personally love that we're able to reach a broader and more diverse global audience. I think that the in-person live training is spectacular and beautiful, but it's narrowed the field of access to folks who can afford to travel or spend extended periods of time in this extended training session. And one of the things that we all discovered through countless organizations and offerings, whether it's EDU or tech startups during COVID, is that tools like this make it possible for more diverse people to participate and join and learn and share and exchange and offer and receive. And so I'm just really excited about being able to diversify the impact and expand the reach and grow our community in a way that was more difficult to do with some of the constraints of version one. So I love that question. Thank you.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. Well, thank you, Cecily, for not only this session, but for being our champion and partner and chair of our board
Oh man.
going forward. And thank you all who've been on this call, our certified teacher community. So many of you I see here are on this call. If you're new to us, and even if you're not new to us, find us. Just check regularly at SIYglobal.com because there are a lot of developments coming. We're going to write up that article about Ukraine. We're going to have some job postings. Please think about us going forward. There is our website. And then if you have inquiries about any or all of this, just email info@siYglobal.com. And then I would just invite us in the last 30 seconds to end as we wish to continue. As one of my colleagues likes to say, she likes to say, let's begin as we wish to continue, which we did, but let's end as we wish to continue with maybe just one mindful breath together. So just allowing yourself to connect with yourself in a way that is alert but relaxed at the same time. And perhaps we can take one full deep breath with full attention and presence, that experience of breath, that experience of aliveness. And then as you exhale, just having gratitude for that same sense of aliveness and well-being that is inherently who you are. So thank you all so much. Thank you so much, my friend Cecily. And onward.
Thank you. Deep bow to you, Rich, for your fearless, patient, and mindful leadership throughout. Yeah, amazing. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.